there, good morning. My name is Kurt Enger, and in this video I'm going to share with you today, I'm going to show you a different way to make contact with the ball, a new ball striking method. And the sport we're going to focus on will be tennis. I'll also, at the end of the video, or during the video too, I'll be discussing some golf. And at the end of the video, I'll also bring in maybe some baseball and some pickleball, just to cover most of the sports that involve ball striking. So anyway, this is the first time I've done anything like this, so please be gentle to me. And when I started on this project, my hair was blonde and I was young. So that gives you a little idea of how long this has taken me. And this has now spanned over 4 decades to get to this point where I want to share this information now with the public. So what I'll do is tell you a little bit about myself and how I got started on this project. And then what I'll do is we'll go over how we're taught to hit a tennis ball, how we're taught to play tennis, or how I was taught, I should say. And then what I'll do is share with you this concept, and I'm going to show you and tell you exactly how it works. Hopefully I can paint a picture that shows you how this concept, how this method works. So anyway, just briefly about me, I'm 68 years old. Just retired last year, so that allowed me to give me the time to devote, to put more time into this project so I could kind of get to where I am today. Growing up, I was a real athletic kid in the 60s. Played all the sports. My dad was a basketball coach. Played obviously basketball. I played baseball, which required hitting. I was a horrible hitter, good outfielder, so I was very athletic. I wasn't exposed to both tennis and golf till I was in junior high. That's when I had my exposure, and I didn't play tennis competitively until I got into both junior college and I went to a small 4-year college also. So that's where I played my tennis. And of course at the time too, I would play golf occasionally. And then after college, moving on with our careers, I'd really lost interest in playing both tennis and golf. And the reason was mechanically it was poor ball striking. Even though I played in college, and even though I, played earlier, somewhat in my life, I never was confident how I struck the ball. It felt weak at impact. I always had, I didn't like the flight of the ball. I was always mishitting the ball. It was just the inconsistency that I continued to, my inconsistency just over time, both in tennis and golf, really drew me away from the sports, where I didn't have an interest very much anymore. But that's just me. I wanted to play at a higher level. I just could not get to a higher level, and I was probably not willing to do what it took to get there. So anyway, moving on with my career, one of the job positions I had, I worked for a private dining and athletic club, and my manager, who I didn't know, I worked for him for months, and I found out that he was a tennis player. And when I went out and watched him play in a local tournament, and I noticed that he was really a good tennis player. And so I said to myself, obviously, wow, would I love to be a tennis player like him? Would I love to be able to hit the ball, strike the ball like he does? And so anyway, I found out that, he was had a tennis background. He was a junior player. He played in college. and he also played some professional tennis in the satellite tour. And he had mentioned to me he'd learned some things while he was playing professionally from a player or players that were on the tour, and he wanted to know if he could share them with me. And I said absolutely. So even though I was not playing competitively at the time, I was still very interested in knowing what information he had to share. And so we would go out on the tennis court, and he talked about these methods and theories and things that I'd never heard before, way over my head. He was he had a mechanical mind. I'm like a picture guy, you know, you got to paint me that picture, show me the picture how it works, then I can kind of get a better understanding. But he was really more mechanical. He tried to paint some pictures, but they weren't all there. But he would basically, you know, trial and error. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And on rare occasions, when I did do what he said, I both felt and saw a different ball. That ball came off my racket. It was a different ball flight. It felt better at impact. It felt secure. It felt strong. And I said to myself, I like that. Okay, what is it? And as we, you know, discussed theories and concepts, and what he really couldn't do, he really couldn't explain to me what his body was doing. And that's what probably is the most important. And so, anyway, we parted ways. I went on in my career, but I never stopped working on that concept. So that really intrigued me, and I wanted to figure that out, or try and figure that out, to become a better player. And so as I moved on in my career, no matter where I lived, I would always find a backboard or a wall that was near me that I could work on this concept. Now, being a multi-sport player that I was, I immediately saw the similarities between both tennis and golf. So during that time period that I was doing my research and using a backboard, anytime I ran into problems, or I made discoveries, or I figured out something new, then I would immediately go to a driving range, or I would go to an area where I would bring my shag bag of balls and I could just hit balls because I needed repetition. Okay, so I was constantly playing the two sports with one another. Without having those two sports together, having a moving ball versus a stationary ball, I could not have come to the conclusions where I am today. So golf was just as important as tennis was. Now tennis, what I liked about that was I could come out and hit hundreds or even thousands of balls in a very short amount of time. And then golf, I could slow things down and take what I learned on the tennis court from, you know, hitting a ball that's coming at you horizontally and at different heights and speeds, and then slow it down, and now I could have a stationary ball and take what I learned there and move it to the stationary, put it in a stationary situation. So it really helped me understand how the body works during the hitting process. And so anyway, fast forward where we are today. So now I'm at a point now where it's taken me over 4 decades to get to this point, but now I've got some good information that I'm going to share with you. And I'm really happy about the results. But one thing about this concept is it never ends. Okay, so I'm really at a point now where I'm saying I'm going to share it with you, but on the other hand, it'll probably continue to go. I'm just stopping and saying this is where I am now, but I think it's a pretty good point. Now, one thing I'm going to say before I show you this concept and share it with you, I'm going to put an X out there for you. And what that X means is enter at your own risk. And what I mean by that is this concept is not going to be for everybody. Okay? This concept is in fact direct contrast to how we're taught to hit a tennis ball, or how we're taught to hit a golf ball, or other sports that involve hitting. Okay? So it's actually, when I look at it and I step back, it's somewhat of a reversal of the hitting process. And when I started this process, I didn't know what I was doing. And going through that, from trying to hit something versus the corrections I had to make, it was incredibly difficult. And I'm not wishing that upon anybody. And for you, for those of you who are willing to give it a try or go out and work on it, it's going to take some time, and I'm going to recommend you're going to need to have some type of wall or backboard near you so you can do the repetition and make the changes to the habits you have from hitting a ball versus not hitting a ball. Okay, so there's a lot of risk involved in this. There's no other professionals that I know of. It's a big world out there, so I don't know. Could be. But there's really, I doubt it, if there's really anyone else who can teach or help you through these things. And without having professional help and you trying to figure out on your own, you're going to go maybe from enjoying a sport to, if you can't figure it out, you're going to be completely confused and having these different swing thoughts and these mechanical issues that you can't overcome. It can really ruin the fun you were having playing the sport. So you really have to enter this at your own risk. And mechanically too, you're going to be using different body parts too. So, I don't want you to risk your health or doing something different that you're not used to doing physically. So there's risk that comes with anything of creating and trying a new learning curve. That's going to be on you if you want to do it. I think these last 40 years have really been about me, because this is what I've been focused on. Is I always wanted to make better contact with the ball more frequently, which would make me more consistent. Okay, and be a better ball striker. That's the whole goal of this concept, and that's the reason I'm standing here and sharing with this information with you today. Okay, so anyway, what I want to do now is, let's just talk briefly. I want to tell you about the tennis lessons I had back in the 60s. This is when I started tennis. Okay, and back then, you're formulating the simple things. What's the grip? And I always use a handshake. I don't want to turn my hand during a hit. I just will turn my wrist. Okay, make an adjustment. So, I just use a handshake grip is really what I do. And then, what's the second big thing we do is, take the racket back. Okay, so, what are we going to do? We're taking our racket back. We're going to step into the ball. We're going to swing forward, make contact with the ball in front of us. We're going to follow through, turn your shoulders, turn at the waist. There's a lot of variables that go into that. But the basic assumption here is the fact that we have a racket in our hand. We've got two independent arms, okay, whether you have a one-handed or two-handed backhand now. And what we're doing is, when someone says hit the ball, I've got a racket in my hand, and here's a ball, and I'm going to swing my arm independently and hit the ball. I think that's a safe assumption to say that that's really what we, that's an assumption that we make, is that's the way we hit a ball. Okay. Now, that's basically the kind of the way I learned to play. Okay. Now, when I'm working with my friend, okay, what we talked about, there are two takeaways that I took away with my friend. Okay, and other than how tennis or golf or baseball, softball, the assumption of swinging the bat or swinging the golf club and hitting something, okay? The the concepts really, in my opinion, really is kind of the way most sports are played or assumed to be playing, or that's been passed down from generations from whenever these sports were created, 100, 150 years ago. We learn from the greatest above us, or how are they doing it, or what are they doing differently, or all the professionals that are out there too. Now, when I get to the concept that I worked on with my friend, this is now changing gears, okay? So the two takeaways I had from him, number one is our power lies behind us, okay? So it's kind of like when we're standing there and we're told to take the racket back, you're kind of gearing up to swing the racket forward to make contact with the ball, okay? So we need momentum. I'm not going to start here to hit the ball. We want to take our arm back so we can swing in and hit the ball. Now, when he said our power line's behind us, the analogy he used was, he said, imagine you have a rope behind you, and what you're doing is you are pulling the rope forward. And once I get to this point, I can't pull anymore, okay? So what we're looking at is, the further in front of you get, the less power you have. The deeper your hand stays, the more power you have. And I use the analogy of a wrench. And what I mean by that is, let's say I am screwing a bolt into the wall here, okay? And I can turn it with my fingers so much, and I can't turn anymore, and then now I need some leverage, okay? So what I'm going to do is put a wrench in here, maybe at about this level, and then I can come down to tighten the bolt, okay? So what I'm looking at is, with my friend and what he had taught me, is the fact that when our arm is behind us, that's where our leverage is our arm is located behind us, okay? So that's the first takeaway, is our power is behind us, all right? Now the second takeaway was, he said you turn to the ball. Now, I really had issues with that one. Like when someone tells you to turn to the ball, turn to the ball. He's not specifically saying how to turn to the ball. He's just saying you turn to the ball. Well, that was very challenging for me. This took me years to figure this out. And what I did was, I had to go through each turn to evaluate each one and either keep it or dismiss it. And so what I did was, I turned from the shoulders, I turned from the core, I turned from the hips, and I turned from my thighs, which I rotated. I pushed off the ground, and then I just turned. If someone told you to turn, you just, a natural turn, whatever a turn, where do I turn? So anyway, what I did was, which this took me, years to go through all of those, okay? And what I did was, I eliminated 4 of them, all right? Now this is with this concept. This is not with traditional tennis and how you play today. This is with this concept only. I'm not here to change anything you do in the way you play sports at all. Zero, okay? This is all about this concept and what I learned going through this process, okay? And these are the conclusions that I came to, okay? So, yeah. So when we talked about the turn, so what, I eliminated the shoulder turn, okay? I eliminated the core turn. I'm going to keep the hips and the thighs, okay? I eliminated the push off the ground turn. And then I just eliminated the turn, okay? So the ones we're going to keep are the hips and the thighs, and those are our large muscles. All right. So, sorry, I'm in a public court and I heard something over there. Now, this was really interesting. Okay, and like I said, this information took me years to figure out. Okay. When we turn, okay, I want you to look at something here. If I take my arm and I apply it to my side and I rotate my hips, what else does it do? It automatically links my upper body. Okay? If I'm hitting a tennis ball physically like we learned today and I'm hitting something like that, it's independent, but it's not linking really into my lower body, even though I'm transferring weight or turning into the ball with the focus being on my independent arm. Okay? But if I turn at the hips first, then that links to my upper body. So now my upper body turns. Okay, so that's critical there. All right, is the fact that we have a link here. Okay, and the second thing I want to show you now is I want you to look at something here. I want you to look at the size of my arms. Okay, now I work out, and these are as big as my arms are going to get. I was always a pretty thin, kid. Maybe that's one of the reasons I was so inconsistent, or I thought, gosh, I just don't have the strength to keep up with some of these bigger players, even though that's not really the case. It's really more mechanics. Okay, but when we look at the size of our body, okay, is that look at these arms that we're hitting the ball with, that we're hitting a high velocity ball with, okay, in tennis, all right, or a golf ball, which we're trying to compress. And look at the size of our limbs